All right, men, welcome to today's episode of Strong Men, Strong Marriages, Hidden Contracts in Your Marriage and Parenting. Man, you've probably got these, and they are probably causing you all kinds of stress and frustration and grief, and that's probably coming out on your wife and your kids. Um, I just discovered a big one that I had today that, man, like really big breakthrough. I feel much better about my relationship with my son and just in my house in general. So yeah, that's fasting and praying. Just got this breakthrough today, so I'm excited to share it. But my name is Mike Fraser, MD. I'm a psychiatrist and marriage coach. I help high achieving Christian men have more intimate marriages. So, some wins from guys in my program. Guys are having increasing intimacy with their wives, physical intimacy, which is great. You know, a lot of us come in, that's what we're looking for. Um, Guys are having a really cool experience. One gentleman shared of just this generational healing with his dad, where he's able to have conversation and understand his dad at a deeper level. Sharon, I love you, in the first time in years. Man, so cool. Really great for him for putting the work in and for sharing that. Awesome. Guys just enjoying time with their family, having fun together. Guys are feeling more grounded in God, more solid. Um, and for me, just this contract revelation, I very much believe this was a revelation from God. Um, so here's the thing: you probably have some contracts in your mind, okay, about your marriage, um, if about your marriage, about your parenting, about your kids, right? If you're like me, okay, and maybe you grew up with this and you've seen it, and maybe you just believe this, like you probably think that your main role as a husband and father is to provide financially. Okay. Maybe if you grew up like I did, it's like preside, provide, protect. So provide financially, preside, kind of be in charge of stuff, direct things, and then protect. Make sure your family is safe from outside threats. I'd say overall, I've done pretty good in that, right? And probably you're saying the same thing, right? And of all those, right? At least for me, this is the way I've seen it, right? And again, this is just me getting insight into my own kind of hidden contracts here. My main role was providing financially, right? And so if you are doing that, what you can feel like is that your wife and your kids should be doing their part of the contract, their part of the deal, okay? So what's their part of the contract? Okay, if you think like me, you probably think, okay, if you're a wife, it's attention, appreciation, affection, and sex. She kind of owes that to you if you're providing financially. Taking care of the kids, more traditional role, taking care of the house, putting you first as her husband, putting the kids next, right? So if that sounds about right to you, okay, fine, great, right? That's it, well, that's what's in your mind. Okay, with your kids, maybe you expect them to be grateful to you, to obey. If you're like me, to be out of the house by age 18 was a huge one for me. So here's the thing, right? Like, let's just say that you agree. You're like, yeah, Mike, that's what I think too. Like, I'm providing financially. My wife should be doing all these things, being grateful, having sex with me. My kids should be being grateful, obeying me, go be out on their own, so I have to keep taking care of them after age 18. Okay. So if that's what you think, right? And you think that your wife and kids have signed those, the thing is, you start feeling really resentful if your wife and kids are not keeping their side of the contract because you feel like you are. You're like, I'm keeping my side, they're not keeping their side. This isn't fair. Okay. And it can feel like every day is just a grind and frustrating and irritating because you are doing your side, but they're not doing theirs. This is how have felt for a lot of my life, actually, now that I look at this, a lot of my married life. And so it makes you want to kind of quit on your side because you're like, yeah, you know, um, if you're not going to do my side, why should I do? Well, if you're not going to do your side, why should I do my side? And so a lot of times for me, I would like in my mind go to this thought of like, I'm just going to stop providing financially. See how they like that, right? Because again, this was the contract in my mind. I was like, I'm doing my part, they're not doing their part. So of course, naturally in my mind, it would go there, to where that's the contract. I'm doing my side. So if you're not doing yours, I can pull mine, right? The financial um, provision. Okay. So, yeah. And so if you ever go there, if you start thinking that way, probably you have a similar contract in your mind, right? Of like, hey, I'm providing financially. So my wife and kids should be doing XYZ. And if they're not, you're getting irritated, you're getting frustrated. If you ever feel like pulling all that financial support, probably you've got that contract in your head, right? And so, but what, and I'm kind of jumping the gun on this presentation a little bit, but what you've got to understand is like, did they sign that contract? Did you put that out there for them and say to them, hey, like, I'm going to provide financially if you do this? Does that sound good to you? Will you sign that? If they're like, yeah, sure, then you have every right to expect that, right? Be frustrated, maybe pull finances, but probably nobody signed that contract. That's just in your head. And yeah, does your wife and your kids depend on you financially? Probably, right? But did they also sign something that said, hey, in return for you providing for me financially, your wife's like, yeah, I'll have sex with you every day if you do that for me, and I'll be super grateful every day. Did she ever like directly tell you that? Probably not, right? Even though you think maybe that's how it ought to be. If she didn't sign the contract, you do not have the right to expect that from her. If she didn't tell you directly, yes, because you provide for me financially, I will give you this. You don't have the right to expect that, okay? You don't have the right to expect that from your kids. If I provide for you financially, you will do this, this, and this for me. Unless they signed it. And, there's something coming up here that I want you to understand about kids with that, okay? So, for me, I really felt like when I had a kid, the contract that I signed in my head was, okay, I'm going to provide for this kid financially till age 18, and then that's it. My contract is done. I no longer have a financial obligation to them. They should be out taking care of themselves. Okay. And so, because my son was then in the house after age 18, I spent pretty much every day since he's been 18 being angry. That's the truth. And I feel embarrassed to admit that. I feel stupid to admit that. But that's the truth. I was mad every single day since he'd been 18 that he was still in the house because I felt like he was breaking his contract. And so, and I was very resentful towards my wife because I felt like she was babying him, right? He was supposed to be out by 18, but he's not, right? I'd also get really mad at anybody that would say to me something like, well, times are different now. And yeah, maybe for us at 18, we're out of the house, but this generation can't do it. I'm like, look, you're just creating weaklings. That's all that is. So stop telling me that because that's stupid. Like, if we want this generation to be better, we need to hold them to something higher, not just baby them and have them be losers, right? This is my mindset. And so, I was like jotting all this down and I was like planning on just showing my son quote, what I would call the facts, right? Which is like, well, you like this room you're renting at age 18, right? It's worth this much. So you owe me this much and I'm providing for that. And so I just started jotting my thoughts down and kind of saw this thing here of like, you're using what was coming to mind is like, you're using my resources, but you don't want a relationship with me. That's not fair. You're using me, all that, right? But so like, I really thought I was right. I thought I was 100% right in this. And so today I just was fasting about it and praying about it. And in the shower, I just like had this come to me that was like, hey, Mike, like no one else signed that contract. Like, your son did not sign something that said at age 18 he was going to be out of the house. And in fact, as a minor, he couldn't have even signed a contract like that. Like, am I going to have a 10-year-old sign a contract like that? A 14-year-old, a 16-year-old? Like, it doesn't make sense. They could not have, like, if I'm expecting them to be out by age 18, they would have had to sign this contract prior to 18, which wouldn't even, like, let's say we're trying to go to court on this, right? Like, it's not a legal thing, right? Could I legally probably kick my kid out of the house at 18? Probably. But, like, I really don't want to be like that. But what was driving me so crazy was I felt like I had this contract in mind that was age 18, and now he's breaking it. That's what felt so unfair. And now I'm doing more than I had signed up for. Okay. But God showed me today he never signed that, and he could not have even signed it because he wasn't even an adult until he was 18, right? So man, I just feel so free, but also man, like what a waste of time and energy to be so upset about this for so long, right? So, we apologized to my wife, apologized to my son today. They took it well, thankfully. Because I think I can tell, like, I feel this, like, pretty deep. And man, what a waste of time and energy and anger, and time that could have been used for better stuff. So anyway, but I can grieve that loss. Probably need to grieve it for a while and then move forward, right? And so, what do you do instead? Okay, so now we understand having these hidden contracts in your mind that no one else knows about, right, is not a great idea. And then you're getting all mad at them for not fulfilling their end of something they never even knew about. That's stupid. Okay, it's a bad idea. It's going to just make you upset. Also, I've been reading the book Let Them, which kind of like prompted some of this, but like a great read, super helpful. But what I needed to uncover this week was this, right? And yeah, I wish I would have been more open to this before, but this is where I'm at right now. So what I realized was like, okay, yeah, so at age 18, sure, a contract actually is a good idea to kind of help kids move on with their lives, okay? And like 18 is the time that it makes sense to have that agreement. Not that you don't start talking at like, 14, 15, 16, 17. Hey, like, what are your plans? What are you looking to do? How can we support you in that? But to have an actual agreement of like, okay, like, what are your responsibilities now in the house that you're 18? Do you have rent? Do you have this? Do you have that? Right? 18, it makes sense. They're an adult legally. It's good to kind of introduce them to this idea of contracts and having your name on something. But really, before that, it doesn't make sense. And it especially doesn't make sense if you never tell anybody about it and just expect them to do it, or expect a minor to make an adult decision. Okay, that's what I was doing all this time. And man, what a waste of time and energy. But and actually, we created this with my oldest son. And when I went back and like looked at the words of the contract today, he actually was keeping it. So I imagine in his mind, and this is what Elizabeth's been telling me, is like he probably thinks he's doing everything, and it just never seems enough. And it didn't seem enough because I felt like he had actually signed a contract that said he needed to be out of the house at 18, and now he was just like breaking that, and like we had to do a lesser contract because my wife made me do that. That's how I felt like every day. And so, yeah, I was mad at her. I was mad at my son. Um, Came home just feeling resentful and taken advantage of and all of that, right? What a waste, right? What a waste of energy. So today, now, I feel much more free because I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we do have a contract and he's actually keeping his end of it. And that's great, right? So, in summary, take some time to figure out what contracts you actually have with your wife and kids, right? In your mind, right? So what do you think your job is? Like, take some time today, write this out. What do you think your job is as a husband? Provide financially. Let me give you some ideas, right? So like body, mind, heart, spirit's a good way, I think, to think about things. So physically, sure, you do have responsibilities. I believe that as a husband and father, yes, one of your jobs is to provide financially. But what about mentally? Like, what do you need to provide there? Support, structure, emotionally, love, encouragement, right? So, how are you doing on those ones? Maybe you're like, oh, shoot, like those aren't doing as well. And those operate differently. Yeah, there's crossover between body, mind, heart, and spirit. But like, if you want to have a good mental connection with your kids, you probably need to, and I feel like mental and emotional kind of go together, right? When you're understanding someone's thoughts and feelings, um, you know, are you spending time talking with them? Are you spending time listening? Like that's what grows a mental and emotional connection relationship. Physical, financial, right? That's its own kind of thing, and it does need to be treated separately. Um, what I was doing in my head too is kind of like combining those. Well, if I'm providing financially, you should provide these other places mentally and emotionally, but they operate on kind of separate levels, and so if you want a good relationship, you need to put in the mental and emotional providing to create that, right? Spiritually, you know. But anyway, like with the contracts, what do you think your job is as a husband and father? Okay. So just jot that down today. And then jot down what do you think their job is? What's your wife's job? What's your kid's job? So write that all out. Yeah, here's what I think my job is. Here's what I think my kid's job is. Here's what I think my wife's job is in terms of our relationship. Okay. Now, once you've written all that out, ask yourself, did they actually agree to this? Did they put their names down and sign something? Do they even know about this? And I think you'll probably find they probably don't, you know. so then what do? Then you say, oh man, like hopefully you see like what a waste of time, right? That I've been holding people to something they don't even know about. And then go ahead and create contracts that you both actually do know about and you agree to, right? That's great. You know, and then, but understand too that like body, mind, heart, spirit, they operate in different levels. Sexual connection operates on a different level. Like what will open your wife up sexually is more like treating her like a flower, right? Giving her time, space, security, right? Talking to her in her love languages, flirting, right? That's how that system operates. Okay, like if you went out to your garden and you threw money at it, it would not grow anything. Okay, like you can throw coins, you can throw dollar bills, nothing's gonna grow, right? It's a different system. Okay, so I think in my mind, like if you're making all the money for your family, let's say, probably what still operates on that level is like household chores. Okay, so or household responsibilities, parenting responsibilities kind of could maybe go in there. But yeah, I think it's fair for you to come to your wife and say something like, hey, I'm providing all the finances, you know, cooking, cleaning, childcare, right? Kind of like the traditional division there is like the husband does all the money, the wife does all the cooking, cleaning, childcare. Okay. Now, nowadays, I think as men, we want to be more involved dads. We want to be more involved in childcare. But yeah, like if you want the split to be 100% that, just be direct with your wife and say, yeah, like I think that's a fair split, right? See what she thinks. Um, or maybe you do want to make some things some days or whatever, right? But just be direct and like find something that works for both of you, right? That's what win-win is about. So to get to win-win, you actually have to understand what's a win for you, what's a win for your wife, and figure it out, right? And I do recommend jotting it down, having it clear, right, so people remember, because even with our son, right, we actually had written it down, we had agreed to something, and then because I was upset about things, remembered it differently. So that's why you write it down. Okay. So remember, like, so if what won't work, the reason I bring up, how sex operates differently, what won't work is for you to say like, hey, I'm providing financially, I want you to have sex with me all the time. Okay, you could say that, but that's basically prostitution. That's how prostitution works. I will pay you for sex, right? Maybe your wife will go for that. She probably won't because, it does not, again, like that's not how the female system operates to really open herself up in a in the best way sexually, right? Maybe she would. Maybe she's like, okay, it's my duty. I guess I owe it to you, right? And she does, but that's not how you really want it. Okay. So that system operates differently. And you guys can have a separate conversation about that, right? Say, okay, yeah, like housework stuff, great. Mentally, emotional, what's a win for you? What's a win for me? How do we both meet each other's needs mentally and emotionally, day to day, week to week, right? Sexually, how do we meet each other's needs day to day, week to week? What makes sense there? What helps you feel more open? What helps you feel more loved? What can help you get more in the mood, right? Um, have those conversations, right? Be direct, right? They operate in different levels. Okay. So if you want to learn how to do these deep dives into yourself and really kind of like rewrite your family history and your day-to-day experience, come join us in Strong Men, Strong Marriages. Visit strongmen.io. Um, and yeah, fill out an application if you want to go deep and do some one-on-one work. That's a bigger financial investment. If you want to join our group program, go ahead and sign up for that. We can do that too. In January, we're probably going to do a different program, working title that Grounded in God, where it's more about you know all those areas, right? Body, mind, heart, spirit, where we're feeling fulfilled, feeling good enough, feeling a lot of it's that, right? Feeling good enough instead of feeling like I have to achieve to be good enough, feeling like you already are good enough. Um, and then, yeah, we keep working, we work towards goals and all that. So, January, that's coming. So watch for invitations to that. We're going to have a small group to kind of do a pilot program. If that's something you're interested in, go ahead, send me an email. But yeah, stay strong in God, men. Visit strongman.io. We'll see you next episode.